friends, I wanted to talk about bounce lettering today, and I want to talk about a few misconceptions about it and reveal a couple of bounce secrets for you, okay? So first, let's just take a look at these letters. So you can see that the word dreaming is just written regularly and in pink, and then the purple and blue colors are bouncy. Now, if we're trying to analyze this and see what makes these look different from this, what makes these look bouncy, why this doesn't look bouncy, a couple of things come to mind. You can see that we have these dips in the letters and the peaks, and if you were just going to try to recreate this on your own without any other knowledge of bounce lettering, you may just go ahead and get started and try adding ups and downs in your lettering without any real game plan or knowing what you're doing. I totally get it. That's how I felt at first too. But I want to show you a couple of the reasons why things look the way they do. So if you know anything about our teaching style here at Loveleigh Loops, that's our specialty. We love digging in and analyzing and figuring out the why behind the way that things are the way they are. So I've got a light pad here with some guide sheets taped on top. First of all, the baseline is this straight line that the lines are resting on, and the header line is where these short letters come up to, like the A and the M and the N. Okay, so this is your header line and this is your baseline. And for this first version, you can see that all of the letters that are supposed to fit in this space, which is called your X height, by the way, are fitting perfectly in that space. Now, when we get to these two words, you can see that we're breaking those rules. So in general, we still have this common baseline that we have a lot of elements hitting. So here, we see it several times hitting the baseline, but we can see that we're breaking the baseline too. So like right here, we're dipping below the baseline. If we look at this part of the M, we're coming up above the baseline. Okay, same thing here. So this is kind of the foundation of what makes bounce lettering look the way it does. We're not just randomly moving our letters around, we're actually still using some sort of baseline, whether it's imaginary in your head or using guidelines like I am here, and modifying where our letters dip and peak below and above the baseline and the header line. Another thing about bounce lettering is that there is not one right way to do it. If you're looking at letters, there's not a single right way to do, for example, the letter M. You can see here we have, in this instance, the M, the first overturn right here, is coming above the header line. And then, of course, we're dipping below here. Whereas in this M, the first overturn is normal, and the second overturn is the one that's coming up above here, okay? Same with this N, for example. The first overturn comes above the header line, while, of course, we dip below the baseline here. And then for the second N, this overturn is normal, while the second one is the one that comes above, okay? So there is not a single right way to do each letter. In fact, there are multiple ways, and we'll talk about that later. Okay, another thing I wanted to talk about was there are certain letters that are great for bouncing, but did you know that not all letters are? So you can even see right here, this E, for example, it's pretty much the same as the E I have right here. Okay, now you can add a little bit of variation. Like I said, there's different ways to do each letter. But for the most part, the E is not going to be one of your key letters that will add bounce to your lettering. The M and N are great examples, and even the A, of letters that can add some bounce into your lettering. So let's talk about why. Okay, so I've got some examples here. Now the top portion, these letters right here, are great for bouncing, and the bottom are not so great. Okay, so let's talk about why. So first of all, we have our normal letters just written out regularly up here in the blue for both lines, and then in the pink we have our bounce lettering. So let's just look at the first section, the letters that are good for bouncing. Now, a couple of things that we can notice are, first of all, they tend to end in a compound curve. So the H, M, and N are all ending in a compound curve, or an underturn. Now, you may be saying, well, wait a second, the A is ending in an underturn, but so is the I. Well, the difference is letters that end in an underturn but also have another basic stroke with them, those are going to be great for bouncing. Letters where it's basically just an underturn, like the T, the C, those aren't going to be great. And here's why. So the letters up here, Let me turn the light pad back on so you can see this. So we can see that here it's very obvious for these letters that the bounce is going above the header line and below the baseline, like we just talked about in the word dreaming. Okay. Now the reason is these are all touching the header line and the baseline at multiple points, whereas these aren't. So this E we can see is dipping below the baseline. So is the I, so is the T. The F is coming down a little bit, but the F isn't a great one to bounce on its own. We'll talk about why in a second. Okay, so if we see here, we can see that we are trying to do some bouncing for these letters, but if I turn off the light pad and you can't see the guidelines behind it, then there's really not much of a difference between this E and this E, or this I and this I. Looking at it on its own, just this pink section here, you wouldn't be able to tell that it's bounced. Now, of course, it is a little bit more elongated and narrow because we are dipping, but if you look at the letters up here, it's very obvious that they're bouncing. You don't need the guidelines to tell you that these letters are bouncy, and the reason is because the letter itself is setting your eye, telling you where your header line and your baseline is. So going back to the guidelines, the A, for example, we're hitting the header line at 2 points and hitting the baseline at 2 points. Okay, the H, we're intersecting it, the header line here, and hitting the baseline at 2 points. M is great, it hits the header line 3 times and the baseline 3 times. I'm ignoring the exit strokes, by the way. And then N hits the header line twice and the baseline twice. Now if we go ahead and look at these ones that are bad for bouncing, we can start to see why. We're only hitting, again, ignoring the exit strokes, we're only hitting the header line once and the baseline once. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, kind of 1. F isn't great, okay? So the purpose then of these letters in your bounce lettering isn't to bounce the letters themselves. The purpose of these letters is going to be providing an anchor point for your other letters. So for example, if we have an E next to this N, then the E is going to help anchor the N so that the N can be as bouncy as you want, but we still want the letters to have, or the words to have some control. You don't want to get so crazy that you can't even read what you're writing. And I feel like that's what happens when you don't really have a game plan for the bounce and all you're doing is trying to make your letters look all jumbled, going up and down, up and down. So we talked about how there is not just a single correct way to bounce each letter. There are multiple ways. We saw it right here with the M, 2 different ways right here. There are more ways than just these 2. And part of it is going to depend on the overall style of what you're going for. If you're going for a more basic look, you might only do some dips rather than all of these peaks up here. And we've actually put together a whole video and worksheet set in the form of an online course that's going to teach you how to do bounce lettering. So here's an example page from the course. And by the way, the course goes into a lot more detail. So if you're liking what you're learning here, then we're going to go a lot more in depth with you in the course. So first we'll start off with basic strokes, and we'll talk about the basics and how you can think about the letters and the way that they are formed. We'll show you 3 to 4 ways to bounce every single letter in the alphabet. So you can see here, we'll show you the basic way of writing it with no bounce, and then we'll show you several different ways to add bounce. Again, we'll also discuss certain letters that aren't great for bouncing on their own, how you can think about the word as a whole and incorporate them that way. We've also grouped the letters into 5 groups from best to worst bouncing, so we'll share that secret. And we'll show you how to put it all together. So once you know how to do all of the letters individually, we'll teach you how to put together in words so that you can choose which variations you want to use. Okay, so we also built this Excel tool that all you have to do is plug your letters in for whatever word you're writing, and the tool is going to tell you exactly where the best places to add bounce are, plus some other things to look out for, such as double letters and some other big picture things. So if you're interested in the course and going a lot more in depth into improving your bounce lettering, then go ahead and check it out in the link in the description below. We hope that you enjoyed this lesson. If you have a request for a topic that you would like us to cover in the future, please let us know in the comments below. Happy lettering!